I'm Max, I work for Lamborghini in sales and I'm a racing driver. I first got into cars when my dad used to take me to Goodwood, Festival of Speed, and it was from then really that the car passion sort of started. I mean, my dad's always had that passion for cars, and just seeing all types of cars from the 50s all the way to the latest models, screaming up the hill with, I mean, my favourite would be the V12 all day long, just wheels spinning up the hill. The sound is phenomenal, and I mean, just where I am now at Lamborghini, the V12 is just amazing. So yeah, the passion started right there. So here I am in the HRO in Lamborghini Pangbourne showroom where I work, and we're very lucky to have a 50th anniversary Gallardo in the showroom. Now this has got bucket seats, Alcantara, 560 horsepower, rear wheel drive. That's the car I'd have. So here we have in the showroom Lamborghini Aventador SV Coupe. Now there's only 600 of these in the world, so we're very privileged to have one up for sale here in the showroom at Lamborghini Pangbourne. We also have a Hurricane Avio edition. Now there's only 250 of these worldwide, sort of to commemorate the Italian Air Force with the paintwork, two white stripes and the L63 design on the car. So we always used to go to a villa in Lanzarote, in south of the island. You're literally driving over the mountains to get there, but there's this just massive car park and it's just asking for handbrake turns. So we always used to just go in there and Dad would be pulling up the handbrake, and we'd obviously have to give back the rental car and say, "Yeah, we haven't done anything, here you go." And it would all be, you know, good fun. But Lanzarote was good because every year we went back, obviously the taller I got, he then had to let me just drive it because I was too big to sit on his lap, and we just, yeah, we'd have fun from there. But that was really, that would be where he taught me to drive when I was very young. It's from then I thought, well, you know, I'd quite like to start doing a bit of driving now, because obviously in the UK you can't when you're that young. So my mum and dad found this championship down at Castle Combe, and it was for junior drivers, and you'd be driving what's like a little Honda kart around tiny circuits, only a couple 100 metres long. We used to do it on all weathers, so you'd be driving in the wet, in the ice and the snow. It would never get cooled off, and you'd be on slick tyres, so it was always a challenge. And obviously being that young, that's the time to pick up sort of the wet weather skills that you'd need in a bigger car or in a proper go-kart, etc. But we did that for a couple of years, before then sort of moving on to the bigger karts. So I started in Junior Rotax Max at Forest Edge and finished top 10 out of 35 to 40 every year, which I was happy about considering it was my first couple of years in karting. And then I moved into the senior championship, so this is from anyone 16 and older, racing to maybe, I think the oldest on the grid might have been 40 or so. But that championship was a lot different to the junior ones. I mean, the junior, you'd sort of give each other a bit more room. Still sort of nudging each other down the straights to sort of speed up a little bit. But seniors was very, you know, this is mine. I'm not giving you up this position. There was a lot more crashes, put it that way. But yeah, karting was very enjoyable to say the least. I mean, really, between that, when I was at school, I went to my headmaster and said, look, there's this championship, it's called the British Schools Karting Championship. He said, okay, well, what's that? So I explained it's whoever enters, or however many schools in the UK could enter. You can enter as your school name and you represent your school to race in the championship, and it'll go from sort of regional finals all the way up to the national finals. We started at Woodley in Reading. That was our first round, where it was all the local schools. And we finished in our first time was third, so it just got us through to the regional finals. The regional, again, there might have been 30 schools there, and we were lucky enough to finish second and get all the way to the national finals, and this was in our first year. We got all the way to the national finals, and they were held at Milton Keynes, which is very cool. and it was between the 30 top teams or top schools in the country. Bear in mind this was out of about 750 schools in the country. Got to the last 30, and then to go back to your headmaster and say, look, we got to the national finals, we finished this, finished 13th, you know, it's amazing. Yeah, that was a really good achievement. So at the end of secondary school, obviously I started college in Basingstoke at Queen Rose College, and I had no money. So I thought, as a student, I should probably go out and get myself a job. And I trained up as a lifeguard and worked at the local swimming pool. This did mean, obviously, that I had to work unsociable hours and meant working weekends, which meant for the next sort of year and a half to 2 years, I didn't really do karting that much. I did it a couple of weekends, but it wasn't as much as a season thing. It was more about having fun and just sort of joining in when I could. But the most important thing at that time was your usual college stuff. So it'd be, I don't know, girlfriend, money, cars. You know, I got myself a Renault Clio when I was 17. And of course, being the typical 17-year-old, I put it on some lower springs, got myself some different wheels. And from then, after the 2 years, I thought, right, okay, well, I'm itching to get back in something fast. You know, the 1.2 Clio wasn't really doing it for me. And my mum and dad, for my 18th birthday, bought me a track experience in a Lamborghini Gallardo Spider around the Top Gear track. So obviously you couldn't do the loop between, but it was just doing around the outside. I mean, to go to the Top Gear track anyway was awesome, and in a Lamborghini, yeah, that was something special. That was good. Really enjoyed it. So after driving the Lamborghini, I thought, right, well, I can't just let it stop there and stop and get back in my Clio and carry on again. So I bought myself another track day. This was at Castle Combe, but the big circuit this time. And I drove Ford Fiesta ST, I drove Ford Focus ST, Lotus Elise, and a Formula Ford. So it was driving quite a few different cars. I mean, the Focus ST, for example, great road car, and it, you know, it was good on the circuit as well. But as soon as you got into the Formula Ford, I mean, that was what it's all about. I was on my own in the car, and the grip level was fantastic. And the drive of it, I'll never forget it. It was just absolutely amazing. The first time that I'd been on my own on a racetrack in a single-seater, never driven one before, and it was just amazing. I loved every minute of it. And it was from then I thought, right, okay, I need to do something about this. I need to get racing. I need to get on the track. I need to do this all the time. So I went back home and I researched how to get your racing license, full-blown racing license. So I looked it up, got all the packages sent to me, signed off for a racing license and booked my day. I went up to Silverstone to do my ARDS license, and I'll never remember it. I was driving up there with my dad, and the worst rain I've ever seen on the way up there, and I thought, how am I going to pass when it's raining this bad? And on the test laps and everything, I was spinning left, right and centre, couldn't get the grip, but I just thought, you know what, I'll keep it on, do what I need to do, won't go too fast, and I passed and got my racing licence, which is, yeah, brilliant. So after acquiring my licence, I thought I need to do something about this, so I rented a car, and it was a Formula V at the time. Obviously, I'd only ever driven a Formula Ford before. Very similar looking cars, but the way the gearbox works and the pedals, the setup, the way you sit in it, it's all very different. So at the start, my dad would help me prepare for the race. Simple things really, like make sure I was buckled in properly and obviously turn the GoPro on before we start. And then I'd obviously head out for the practice session. Heading out for the practice session and qualifying, I managed to qualify 17th out of what was about 35 cars at the time. And considering that was my first qualifying, I was expecting to maybe finish 34th or something like that. I wasn't expecting to finish 17th. I mean, that was a great feeling to come back in after that brief sort of turnaround and see obviously where I'd finished, and that was great. So on my way up to the grid, after doing the practice session, I couldn't get the thing into first. You know, he'd slow down, he'd have burnout before, and I just couldn't get it into first. I was there like trying to get it in, and I thought, there's something wrong here. So I managed to get it in, and I thought, right, okay, I'll just see it out, and hopefully it'll be all right. You know, it's my first race, I want to start. and pulled away fine, but where it had been raining earlier, the track was wet and it was a bit greasy. Got second, third gear, it was absolutely fine. Come to the first corner at Paddock Hill Bend. Paddock Hill Bend has always been a nightmare. In Formula One history, for example, that is the bend. So rather than stop using it, of course. I came in there, got a slight tap from the rear, it was ever so slight. If it was in the dry, you wouldn't have even noticed it. And it was just enough to offset the car on the top of the hill, but as soon as the car sort of dipped and the weight transferred, I just pirouetted down the hill. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. I was going sideways down the hill until I came to a stop. And when I came to the bottom of the hill, obviously I've got 10 drivers behind me, also trying to get around the bend. And you know, it was near on impossible that one of them wasn't going to hit me. And unfortunately, what happened was one went straight into the side of my car, took out the engine, took out the gearbox, took out the drivetrain, absolutely everything, caused thousands of pounds worth of damage. And it was at that point really where I thought, this is over before it's even started. So after the tragedy of my first race, I obviously had a lot of money to pay back, and the bill was quite big, and it put me out for the whole season, which was not good. I mean, I couldn't race literally from April, but luckily at the end of the season we found a championship winning car. It was a BMW E36 318 IS, and we thought that could be the one for next year. So here I am on my BMW E36 318 IS race car. It's fully stripped out, weighs just over a tonne, it's only got 150 horsepower, and it's absolutely amazing to drive.
So Max and I have been a racing team together as father and son for a long time. It was a little bit strange for us to turn out our very first car race with a car that we'd prepared ourselves. We knew it was good, but we didn't realise just how good. She's been incredibly reliable, and I know one end of a spanner to the other, but to be honest, I haven't had to do very much work on this. She's been safe, reliable. As a parent, I wanted to be in one piece, and I want him to be in one piece at the end of the race. This has done the job. It handles beautifully. Very, very nice car to work on. But moreover, she has been part of the family this last year. She's looked after Max, Max has looked after her, and she's been wonderful.
Seeing that BMW up for sale online, we did actually buy the car, and we entered into the BMW Kumo Tyre Championship with the BMW Racing Drivers Club, and the first round of the championship was at Silverstone, so a very iconic track to start with. And before this I hadn't really driven the car at all, and it sort of was at Silverstone when you're sort of driving around. It was the GP circuit, so the one that the F1 drivers drive around. And in the 1.8 litre engine, it just seemed to go on forever. And the track's so wide as well in the car that's so small. I managed to qualify quite well in my class, and I managed to pick up my first podium in the class. So it's all set up into classes. So I managed to get a podium in my first race, which is a fantastic achievement, considering obviously what happened last year in the Formula V. So obviously that was a great start to the 2016 season with driving the BMW. So the next round of the championship was at Rockingham, about a month after Silverstone, and I'd never driven Rockingham before, so I thought I'd get some professional help before I go out there and spend all my time practicing the track in the race. So I went to the race hut in Slough and got some help from David Good, who's also an onlymotors petrol head as well, and that helped massively in terms of knowing the track, knowing the apexes, and sort of getting used to where I could brake. Simple things really. I mean, after the long sort of curve of the NASCAR racetrack, you've got all of a sudden there's a massive hairpin, so I needed to know where to brake for that. I was able to put all the practice to the test in qualifying. I managed to keep up the good scoring that I had at Silverstone and qualified well in class. I think I qualified third. And in the rain at Rockingham, that's good considering you've got the banked circuit and there's a lot of fuel down from where it's a NASCAR circuit, or used to be. And I managed to continue the podium record in the race and get another, I think I finished second on the Saturday and third on the Sunday. So considering that was my second race of the weekend with 2 podiums over that weekend, that was amazing. That's all I could have asked for really. So it's been a good season so far. Halfway through the season was Donington. Now Donington, obviously I'd been there and did my test day at the start of 2015, but this year obviously I was racing, so I went there with Stuart, my mechanic, Tim, and my friend Dougie, and they were sort of my helpers and my mechanics because my dad wasn't here, he was on holiday, enjoying himself in the sun. So it's from then, I mean, qualifying, absolutely brilliant. Managed to put out a pole in class, which is the first time I'd done that. And, by quite some margin as well. I think because of the test day the year before, sort of knew the circuit, knew the layout. And it came to the race on the Saturday, and obviously because I was so pumped from getting in first position in qualifying, I thought, right man, get to that first corner, get round it first and get on with it and win by a massive margin. That was the plan. I came into the first corner and it wasn't plain sailing at all. I mean, one of the guys who was in an M3 unfortunately spun on the outside of the corner, and bear in mind that was about 10 places up from me. As I came round and sort of the apex opened, I just see this red M3 sat in the middle of the track and I got absolutely nowhere to go. Everyone is going left, right. I come round, lock up, nowhere to go, straight into him. And I just tipped my head and thought, again, really? Have I really done this again? Is this a repeat of Formula V? I went to try and move the car wouldn't move, the wheel was just clearly, stuck. So I had to get towed away. And unfortunately that was, I thought, right, okay, well that's the weekend done, Dad's gonna be very happy. So after the accident on the Saturday, we had overnight to fix the car, and thank you to obviously Stuart, Tim and Dougie for getting the hammers out, and we managed to put the car sort of back together. A lot of duct tape used, and obviously smacking the panels back together just to get us out for the Sunday race. But because I didn't finish on Saturday, I had to start last. So that was 33rd, I think it was, on the day. So there was a lot of cars in front of me. So I thought what I'm going to do is give a big gap on the way down to the first corner, and then after that I'll sort of get on it and overtake some cars. So I think in the first 3 laps I'd overtaken 7 cars, which was great. And then it just kept on going, and I could see them in the distance, so I was reeling them in. And I didn't know this, but at the time I was setting fastest lap in my class by about a second each lap, so I was catching them by a massive margin. I managed to catch third, but just too far away from finishing first. But do you know what? I came from 33rd, and I think I finished 14th overall, which was second in class. So for me, that was, what a turnaround for the weekend to come in. It felt like I'd won, put it that way. So to wrap up the season of 2016, I went to Brands Hatch, and this was the point where I managed to qualify first. I managed to win both races, and in the second race I didn't think I was actually going to finish first. I thought I was going to finish third, and I managed to overtake 2 cars in 1 corner on the last lap and obviously bring it home. And then so obviously that was the triple that weekend. Then went to Snetterton the month after, and again I managed to, the form was really good. I managed to qualify on pole, win the race on the Saturday, and then win the race on the Sunday, but the Saturday race was dry and Sunday race was wet. So the difference was massive. But to win in both conditions was a real challenge, considering they're so different. Same track, but really different. That was really good. And then the last race of the season brought us to Silverstone again, and it was Silverstone International Circuit. So it's half of the big track, and there the qualifying was great. One of the races was dry and one again was wet, and I managed to win both races for the last race of the season, which was obviously fantastic for me, because that meant the last 6 races that I did, I won every single one. So for me, the end of the season has been fantastic, and it just shows that the form, the practice, getting used to the car, sort of really came as one, really, and the sort of racecraft, everything that comes with it. So I mean, season of 2016, I'd say I've learnt loads. I've driven at many tracks across the UK and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think if it wasn't for that one accident at Donington, it would have topped off the season, really, because that would have just been a straight run from there. But it's been an amazing season, and next year we've just got to work out a plan. So this year has been amazing. In my first year in cars, I've achieved a podium at every circuit I've been to and raced at, and I've won 9 races in total, and I won the last 6 races of the season. So for me, ending on a high, where to go next? Well, ideally, I'd like to go into some kind of GT racing, whether it be GT4, GT3, but obviously I need to acquire some sort of sponsorship or backing from a partner to sort of try and further my racing career, to sort of go from there, really.